Okay. It says we're live. Hey. Hey, Dad.
Everyone. Hey, Jamie.
How's it going?
Are you asking me or?
Yeah, I'm asking you, how are you doing, I guess is what I mean to ask.
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a very good day.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good.
Did a bit of filming, did some errands, back home. Now doing what we both love,
Hmm.
talking to a screen.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any people watching. I feel like usually when I'm running things, I can see, I can see who's there. But currently, we've got the lovely team at Pet Summits running things for us. So
It said there are 100 people.
that's what our tech support person says. Cool. Well, we are here to answer your questions. It's a live Q&A to go with our Out of Control Dog Summit.
It's up to
And
105.
oh, okay. We have some people in the comments. Kerry says I'm here from the US, and Marion says I am a screen. But I think she means she's looking at us on a screen.
Where are you seeing those comments? Do I see those?
On the right side, there's 3 tabs at the top. Private chat,
Oh,
which I think is
comments.
what you're
I got
looking
it.
at. Comments, yeah.
Oh,
So
there we go.
we got 100 people, 1 screen, and 1 person from the US. Before we jump into the questions, which I'm sure will be coming soon, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. We've got Doggy Dan and the Healing Vet, and of course us, Dunbar Academy. What wonderful sponsors! Yes, there you go. So thank you for making this Q&A and this summit possible. If you have questions, post them in the comments, and we will answer them. For the next hour, we are all yours.
I love seeing where they all are. Columbus, Ohio, Colorado, Canada.
Mm-hmm. I
Two
know
of
it's...
Debbie, but I don't know where they are. Celeste. Hi, Dr. Dunbar. I bought your book on release day this month. Thank you, Celeste. You wonderful person, you. TK
Yep.
San Diego. Oh,
While we're waiting, I can tell people, if they haven't already, get a copy of Barking Up the Right Tree by Dr. Ian Dunbar. I just happen to have one I keep here on my desk. Aha.
You're relentless, Jamie.
Well, people don't know if you don't tell them.
So I just put on Facebook today, I'll be down in San Diego doing a couple of seminars end of March, a fundraiser for Next Step Service Dogs and San Diego Humane Society. Yeah. First one in 9 years. Wow.
Wait, isn't that Ajijik?
Ajijik. Hey, Lorraine. Yeah, I'll be down in Ajijik, Jalisco soon. Very exciting. Thanks to...
If you go to the San Diego Humane Society website, you should be able to see information about Ian's San Diego seminar. Or we'll be sending an email about it to our list soon. So if you're on our mailing list already.
I remember the Humane Society in Columbus, yes. Back when Jamie was first getting into the family business.
Well, it must have been about 20 years ago.
Oh,
all
really?
Right.
Info about what's that? What did TK ask about? Oh, really? Info. Oh, maybe you answer the question. Yeah, do we have any questions yet? Plenty pause. Well done, you bought the book. That's 2 have been sold at least. That's encouraging. Yeah, I don't check in with the publisher how many they're selling. Oh, Abbotsford. I spent some good times there, Debbie. Hey, Santiago de Chile. Oh, the San Diego info. Yeah, good. We'll and hope we'll see you at the seminar. Spread the word, please.
Oh.
Do you have any questions, Jamie?
No questions? I don't know. Jindy, our tech support person, will put them up on the screen once we get a question.
That means, guys, I think you have to write them. If you can't think of anything about dogs, then just ask Jamie and I personal questions. Or about the weather or the traffic. I mean, let's be very English about this. Question, 2 male dogs. All right.
Do you want to read it or should I, Dad? Dad.
Yes, 2 male dogs, one recently neutered. Now the playing is turning more to nasty fighting, hoping we can correct it after watching your video. But any extra tips? Yeah, I think the big missing part of the puzzle is we don't give dogs guidance when they're indulging in the most complicated of all behaviors, i.e., interacting with other dogs. You know, we've got in this sort of mindset of handling one behavior at a time. Well, behavior's not like that. It's changing every second. And most of the time, the dog is good, really good. So we got to praise them. There's a good dog, good, be gentle, good dog. And if they do start to amp up, give them instructive guidance, i.e. verbally. Okay, you're not going to solve it, you know, with one food reward here or one click or what have you. I like to give a running commentary, letting the dog know when it's good, when it's really good. So not only is the behavior acceptable, but how acceptable, how happy am I? When we do that, that changes the whole dog's demeanor. I mean, our biggest human foible is we always take the good for granted and moan and groan and bitch at the bad, you know, and so we're drawing attention to when the dog, you know, goes off track. So give the dog a running commentary. And if you ever think it's amping up too much, sit, settle down, and slow the dog down. And I like to give them a little chest stretch and get them relaxed again, and then go play. But you should never neglect good behavior when it's happening. And that would include not being bad. I remember telling some guy, you know, praise your dog now. And he said, why? It's not doing anything. I said, precisely. You're moaning about him fighting in the dog park. And here he is just sitting there, you know, smelling the coffee, sniffing the flowers, and you're ignoring him. So we always praise and reinforce good behavior. Excuse me.
All right.
Frog jumped in my throat.
The questions have started coming now. So, okay. Suzanne says, how can I train my hound to stop sniffing the ground in the rally ring? I must be boring to him.
No, it's not that you're boring to him. It's that you don't even rate on the same planet when it comes to sniffing. Jamie and I have been doing the same with the dog here, who I've got just for a couple of weeks to try and get him to stop barking at things, stop alerting at things, get some pretty good obedience into him. But the big hurdle in our way is outside the dog's, well, inside the dog's nose goes to the ground. He never picks it up. So what you've got to do is to integrate little training moments into sniffing. Because do this first standing still. You'll never be able to train a dog when you're walking, or if the dog is meant to be working for you or competing. So first, just ask your dog to sit, stay, watch. So you want the dog to sit and look at you. And that's proof that it's paying attention. I mean, maybe paying attention to your voice, you don't know unless you ask it to do something. And you can say, Rover, sit, and he can go from looking away from you, looking around at other dogs, looking up from a sniff to sitting. And then after 2 seconds, say, go sniff. And then sit for 3 seconds, go sniff. And then once you've got a dog where you can get him to sit and stay and look at your face and do things. I find little doggy things help. Go, and then good dog, good dog, good dog. Okay, go sniff. And then I just turn away like that. As we increase these periods, sit, stay, watch, while we're stationary, then try it in one heel, sit, heel, sit sequence. So rather than thinking of the dog moving beside you as healing being a continual process, do it in short sequences. So sit, one step, sit, and you keep the dog watching you the whole time. Then go sniff. Then try sit, 2 steps, sit, and watch at you and praise, and then say, go sniff. And as we keep doing this, we're gradually increasing the length of these little training interludes. And that's the easy bit. The hard bit is to get the dog to look at you for a second. But once he's done that, just hold out a food treat, but don't give it. Hold on to it. Put it in front of your face. Stick it on your forehead if necessary. But try and expand that quick glance to now a palpable second, or 1 step, or a longer 2 seconds, or 3 seconds, or 5, or 8, or 10, or 20. You get the idea? Then and only then would I go to the working in rally. You don't want to try and do this. I used to say back in the good old days, 50 years ago, when I was talking mainly to obedience competitors, if you have a problem, you don't want to try and solve it within the pattern. And by that, I mean is the obedience exercise. Because if you get frustrated, the dog will learn that whenever you do obedience, you get frustrated. In this case, it's rally. So solve the problem first, standing still. Today we were working outside of a dog park. This was the dog's first visit to a dog park. So before going on, I wanted to make sure I've got some semblance of attention before I went in. And I didn't. Did I, Jamie? How many times did I walk up the path of the dog park, turn around and come back until the dog could walk up with a fairly loose leash and paying attention to me and would sit if I would stop? So you troubleshoot these problems always from the best possible training scenario, which is you standing still at home. And you can provide things for dogs to sniff, get your nose work containers and put something different in each one, a bit of cheese, bit of salami, bit of cat poop. And so we're in a living room now with the dog on leash. And we say, sit, stay, watch, or you're a good dog, you're a good dog, you're a good dog. Oh, go and sniff. And that will be surprised for the dog that, oh, we got cat poop or cheese in the living room. And then get his attention again. And once you get back to doing this, go sniff becomes the reward. It's the massive thing that's missing in all training. We've just got seduced by this food treat thing. And whatever the dog does, good dog, food treat, good dog, food treat. So you end up with these whack-a-mole type dogs, which are throwing loads of machine gun behaviors at you. Sometimes it's entire behavior repertoire. And all you wanted it to do was to sit, stay, watch for 30 seconds. So the big rewards in training, far more powerful than food and praise, are go play, go sniff, tug, fetch, interactive games, hide and seek, and things like that. That's where you run and hide, not the dog running and hide, of course. So right. It's just a different way of looking at training.
Okay, I have an ongoing problem with my reactive GS mix, barking and lunging at the TV. Any type of animal, even animated, sometimes people in costume or fast actions. No matter what we do, she's so upset.
If I don't answer this fully here, TK, just grab me when we're in San Diego. Anyway, I love vocalization problems because it's like even the best trainers in the world get stumped. I can remember a very famous dog trainer, and in flyball, her dog barked and never stopped. And I say, don't you think if it wasn't expelling oxygen from its lungs, but breathing in, it would then run faster for you? But she couldn't control it. So basically, there's a number of things. I like to do basic bark reduction first, so that barking is just lessened as a recreational habit, which helps with the reactive barking as well. Simple things like Kong feeding. That's why I wasn't on screen when we went live. I was giving the dog in residence a Kong, in a different room because she was starting to amp up, thinking, isn't this the time we go out for a walk or play tug in the living room? I said, no, this is the time we settle down with a Kong, and every bit of food that comes out, every bit of food the dog extricates from a Kong rewards the dog for what it's doing at that time, which would be chewing the Kong, lying down calmly and quietly. Then I would deal with barking in one of two ways. Firstly, the dog suddenly barks. So it happened. When did it happen? Oh, yeah, we saw a friend on our walk today through the fence. And Susie says, I want to run and chase with her again. I want to run and chase her. And then woo, 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 woo. And I said, shush. Did I say Zuzu? Yeah, I'm sorry. That was my old dog. She's been gone for 6 years now, but I still keep calling dogs Zuzu. Anyway, so I said, Billy, shush. And Billy barks again. So I say, Billy, shush. And I just took her by the collar. And I'm just I drop my voice a little. I'm calmer. I'm slower the way I speak. I'm much more insistent, and I'm going to be insistent. The dog will stop barking because, I tell everybody, I'm not a great dog trainer. I don't have much patience. I want it all done quickly, easily, and being very effective. But the one skill I have is I just don't give up. I give it a go and I don't give up. So if I say sit, the dog will have to sit before life as dog continues. If I say shush, it'll have to shush there and then. Now, a little trick is we can lure, reward, train the dog to shush when it's barking, which is the basic training sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4, request, lure, response, reward. So what's the lure to get the dog to stop barking? Well, that would be the problem the other owner just asked. My dog sniffs all the time. So number one, I say Rover, shush. Number two, I pull out a food treat, nice bit of Ziwi Peak, put it on the dog's nose, and as soon as they sniff, they stop barking because they are two mutually exclusive behaviors. Then I praise, good shush 1, good shush 2, good shush 3, and then I offer the food. Why 3 seconds? Because a reward, like a punishment, will only influence behaviors that happened in the last 3 seconds, practically the last 2 seconds. So that way I know I'm not rewarding the dog for barking. On the contrary, I'm rewarding the dog for stopping barking and being quiet for 2 seconds. Now, we even have a better tip. I'll just describe it very quickly. Let's teach the dog to speak on cue. Why? People say, stupid, it barks enough already. Why would I want to put barking on cue? Well, so you could then turn it on and turn it off at your convenience in the living room with a glass of wine. Rover, speak, good dog, good dog. Just as soon as you do that, the dog goes, oh my God, my owner understands. Of course I have to bark. I'm a dog. So Rover, speak, woof, 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 good dog, Rover, shush, food on the nose, the dog sniffs and stops barking, good dog. And as we do this, repeating the sort of woof shush sequence, we increase the shush time by a few seconds each time. So we must, with all misbehaviors, behavior problems, and non-compliance, we must make sure that when they misbehave or they are non-compliant, that our feedback is instructive. And if there is one way that any aversive stimuli totally fail, it's they aren't instructive, and so they just don't work very well. Whereas our voice, dog's chewing, chew toy, the dog's about to pee in the living room, outside, toilet, go pee, the dog's barking, shush.
And the cool thing about the problem you've described, with the cool thing about the problem that was, the initial question, barking at a TV, is you have control over the TV. You have a remote control. So it's actually the perfect situation for teaching a dog to bark on cue. A lot of times when you're trying to teach a dog to bark on cue, we tell people to ring the doorbell or whatnot.
Yeah.
And half the time when you're trying to actually teach the dog to bark on cue, it doesn't bark on cue.
Yeah. So now the 1, 2, 3, 4 could be, the request could be, do you want to watch TV? And then we turn it on and the dog barks. And then we say shush and turn it off and give them something to sniff. Very good idea, Jamie.
All right. What about the next question? Our dog is a rescue 3-year-old and is incredibly leash reactive outside. He's a perfect gentleman inside, but hackles go up, lunging and barking when he sees other dogs out and about. Any advice? Oh, this is a classic.
Yeah, I again, you cannot do this on a dog walk. It's too confusing. Every step you take, there's a billion new stimuli for the dog, whether visually, auditory, or more likely, olfactory wise. And so it's best to do it with you standing, the dog standing by your side, but you control the environment. You've asked 5 of your friends to come round with their dogs, and they're just out of sight round the corner. And we're all on contact with our iPhones. Okay, and so now we say, next dog, come. And we say, there's a good dog, shush, good dog, and shush, good dog. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, shush, shush, sit. You must keep the dog sitting. You must get it down. And the first time you do it, it's mayhem. I mean, it's crazy. And you're repeating all the commands now, lie down, and shush. Not shouting, but you're not going to give up. Now, when you're doing this, the person with the other dog is a setup. So they see you're having trouble, so they disappear out of sight around the corner again. And then when you got your dog lying down and praising again, now you say, okay, next dog, good dog, and you get back to the running commentary with your dog. You cannot possibly deal with any of these behaviors, even over-the-top play, let alone reactivity, if you're in motion. And whether you're doing it with a food reward or a shock collar, it just ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. And so we have to let the dog know how it's doing. We have to be like, remember those old time boxing matches on the radio and horse races? I used to love them. Those commentators were marvelous. You could see the game or the race in your eyes. And from someone listening to me giving a dog feedback, they could picture exactly what that dog is doing, whether it's getting it right, whether it's getting wrong. If it's getting it right, how well is it doing? And if it's getting it wrong, how dangerous or inappropriate is that behavior? Because that's probably the only time when I would raise my voice and I would say, hey, I said sit. That is totally inappropriate what you're doing. You're giving yourself a bad name. You're giving your breed a bad name, because people think all this breed of dogs are like barky, lungy dogs. So when we troubleshoot it, so we are in control of the other dogs, we can do an awful lot of work in one 15 to 30-minute session. And it's worth it, because what you're giving your dog is the gift of confidence and the gift of being able to be walked again and not be stressed all the time. And it's just a fear-based issue that the dog probably, if I said, okay, walk him into this garden, I'll shut the gate and I'll let them both off leash. Fine. I mean, I've seen that so many times. I mean, that is the norm. On leash, the dog is reactive and lunging and barking. Why? Because there's a human the other end of the leash who is always unintentionally reinforcing the behavior. Yeah, you're trying to stop it. But all the stuff you do, the tightening the leash and the agitation in your voice, gets this dog upset, which then sets off the other dog and the other owner. So the vibes they're putting out threatens your dog and you. So we've got to, we just did a series of podcasts on this, didn't we, Jamie? About 6 of them. How explaining that if you can control your dog, you can change the behavior of the other dogs. Because so many people blame it on the other dog. Oh, it was out of control. It was on a flexi leash, or it was off leash, or whatever. Yeah, was your dog sitting and watching you quietly? So give it a try. And if you can't do it in 30 minutes, then try again tomorrow, because it's going to change not only your dog's quality of life, but your quality of life. I mean, I've been working with this dog now. This is the 5th day. And quite honestly, I was head banging. The dog was giving me a run for my money. And I tried a lot of techniques. And then I changed them. And yesterday, we actually started to get somewhere. and I had a few really enjoyable moments walking the dog instead of having to be on edge and give continual feedback again.
Yeah. All right. Trying to work on recall with my beagle many years ago and called when he was sniffing. Ignored, put a handful of hot dog pieces under his nose, and he just pushed my hand out of the way. I don't think that's a question unless there's more to it, but it is a great example of how, for some dogs, sniffing is a greater reward, a greater distraction than even the most delicious food you could possibly think of. And
Oh, and
so
nearly every
trying
dog.
to trying to bribe the dog with food is not going to work if sniffing's what they love. And so you really got to figure out how to use the sniffing as the reward and teach your dog that listening to you is the way to get to the sniffing. And now listening to you becomes the best thing that they could possibly do because they know that's how they get to their favorite thing, the sniffing.
Yeah, and we have a lot of tips in the book as well, how to take any object, whether it's a piece of kibble, or I like using a tug toy, and amping it up as the most powerful secondary reinforcer in the world, because it signals to them, like, for example, you say to the dog, sit, take the tug toy. Good dog, thank you, on the couch. So the dog has to take and hold the tug toy before anything good in life, before you let it out of its crate, before you open a door for it, before you say in the car, before you let it off leash, and so on. So now the tug toy or a piece of kibble means, wow, it's like the key to the city. But what your sort of problem sort of tells me is, yeah, as Jamie says, rather than say reward training your dog, or much better, lure reward training your dog, you're now bribing it. And so that's where, I mean, I really go to town on this in the book, that people didn't understand that lure reward training was a whole training method with 3 stages. And stage 1 is go cold turkey on the food in your hand. We use the lure to teach the dog the meaning of hand signals, and then we use the empty-handed hand signals to teach the dog the meaning of words. So now at least the dog understands what we want it to do. Because when I test reliability of a dog, even the highest trained dogs in the world, I pick a simple command, sit. And what I prove to the owner is, even when you say sit, the dog doesn't understand the meaning of the word as you do, because of the way dogs learn. They are such fine discriminators. They learn exactly what you've taught them, which is usually sit in the kitchen at dinner time. But if we test with different handlers and in different rooms, and heaven forbid we move out to your backyard or the sidewalk on leash, the response reliability percentage often drops to 0. So yeah, you're going sit, 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 but you may as well be saying, like Larson's cartoons, blah, 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 blah. So the first thing is to teach and test that your dog understands the meaning of your instructions and is sufficiently motivated to do so. So that's what the response reliability percentage is. It's a single index of comprehension and motivation. And this is, I'll give a big prediction now, by the end of this year, I think the whole of formalized dog training will have a total makeover, because every dog trainer will be testing comprehension and motivation as they train. And that's what lure reward training did. We work out things like response reward ratio. How many responses will the dog do for a prospect of a single treat? Well, to start you off, the average golden in a puppy class would do 20 puppy push-ups. That's down sits for the prospect of a single food reward. That's 40 to 1, 40 behaviors for one food reward. The biggest screw up in training at the moment, we give the dog far too many treats for doing far too little. They do anything, we give them a treat. And so we get these dogs that you go sit, treat, and so they go sit and they stand up. Or you go down, stay, and they stand up, circle, high five. We want to get not only more behaviors for a single food reward, but longer duration behaviors. And we do it by baby steps, which is basically a shaping technique of a ready formed response. we're not molding the response to become, like the final performance. Sit is the final performance. We just want the dog to do it quicker and keep sitting for longer. So in that sense, when we do baby steps, my favorite example is the one I use in the book. We had a Jack Russell with a 0.2 second sit stay. In, I think it was 20, 30 minutes, we had now a 1 minute sit stay. So by the fourth trial, we had a 1.2 second sit stay, which sounds stupid, but hey, that is 600% improvement in 4 trials, taking less than 40 seconds. You do that 4 times, you have a 4.5 minute long sit stay. So baby steps, and then quantify your progress as proof of training and proof of the speed of training.
All right. That's what happens when you don't ask a question. It's dealer's choice, and Ian will just tell you what's on his mind.
What happened? What, did I do something wrong?
No, I mean, like it was a question. It wasn't a question, so you can just say whatever you want, right?
What wasn't the question?
The last comment was about someone was just like, I had a beagle. I was trying to get it to a recall, and I offered hot dogs, and it blew me off. And I was like, well, that's not a question, so
Yeah.
just, what do you want to talk about?
No, I think I gave a good comment to her comment.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people benefited from from the insights that you just shared. So,
and it is when once your food becomes.
But that said, there are a lot of people with questions who I think would love to have answered. So I think
you're such a wonderful moderator. I think you're the only one who can keep me in check. I feel like I'm a wild bronco, who wants to buck and kick and roam.
Yeah, I do my best.
Calming me all the time and focusing me like a good person trainer.
Okay, what's our next question? All right, the shade white cell talk was very helpful and reassuring, but any tips for insane bicycle reactivity would be appreciated. They're so quiet, he generally is over the top before I even see it. So, as with pretty much any reactivity problem, the solution lies in having a training setup where you have control over the stimulus. So your dog reacts towards bicyclists. The only way you're going to resolve this, well, the fastest way to resolve this is if you can enlist the help of a friend on a bicycle. And you can hang out in your driveway and tell your friend to just go by your house on their bicycle over and over and over again. And you're going to know they're coming. You can call them and tell them, hold on a second, I'm not ready for the next one. You have control over it. It's predictable. And because it's the same bicyclist over and over again, each time will be less exciting. Things are not interesting the 10th time you've seen them, the 20th time you've seen them. But the big thing is having a stimulus that you can control. And fortunately, a lot of people have bicycles. So shouldn't be too hard to find a friend who will be willing to help you out. You might have to bribe them with a 6-pack or a pizza or some home-cooked chicken curry, whatever it is. People also require motivation, but yeah.
We do. I mentioned quite a few party training ideas in the book for, training a dog to greet visitors at the front door. You set it up. You invite 20 people around, pizza and beer, and every person, once they come in and they get a little bit of pizza, only tiny slice of pizza, you then push them out the back door and they have to go around to the front door and come in again. And Jamie makes a very important point that the first exposure is always the scariest, creating the largest reaction from the dog. And if you just repeat that stimulus and re-expose the dog to the stimulus over and over, the dog's reaction gets less and less. So you must do it in a setup where you have control over the people and the bicycles. You must repeatedly expose the dog, but I would even make it easier on the dog and make the first exposure to the bicycle much easier on the dog. With you standing, with your dog on leash, obviously, your dog already in a sit stay, with you giving a feedback to it and feeding its entire breakfast of kibble piece by piece while the dog's doing this, and then the first bicycle comes round the corner being slowly pushed by someone who's walking. And then they walk by, then they walk back. They go back and forth in front of the dog. Then the next person comes, and then they scoot on their bike. They put a foot on one pedal and scoot along slowly before we actually get to someone riding the bike. And so you always want to reduce the out of control, frightening stimulus to one that's in your control, so you can repeatedly expose it to the dog and you can make it disappear. Just like Jamie's TV suggestion: turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. And also by breaking the frightening stimulus or reactive stimulus up into little tiny pieces. So like we could have a bike leaning in front of your house and there's no person near it, and we walk by a few times. We could even reduce it to something as simple as that. But the main thing you get from both of our messages is do it, troubleshoot it. Problems of the reactive kind you are not going to resolve in the course of everyday living, period. Because every time is a first time, the dog goes over the top with its reaction, and every time it happens, you aren't prepared. So the great thing about a troubleshooting session is you're geared up, you've had your glass of your cup of chamomile tea, and you're chill, you're relaxed, and your brain's focused. And then you call the first minimal or subliminal part of the stimulus to come by.
Yeah.
And then you work it up from there. And remember the baby steps of the Jack Russell. A 0.2 second sit stay sounds stupid, but within the half minute, we were now up to a minute sit stay. Baby steps are so important, and they're so important for adult animals. You see, with puppies, we just throw them in. You do what you like. It's very difficult to flood a puppy if it's less than 3 months old. Because people say, oh, you're frightening the puppy. I say, no, I'm not. Go through that video and show me one instance of that puppy showing any little signs, itsy bitsy signs of stress. They aren't there. No, the floor was covered with scary objects, wind up toys that make noises, and crinkly paper, and great big children's swimming pools of balls and tin cans and everything. And it was like a junkyard. The puppies are happily playing in it. We had sound tapes playing the whole time, of children crying, motorcycles, car backfires. And
we're getting a little off track, though.
The beauty of puppyhood.
Yes.
No, I'm not getting off track. What I'm saying is you won't deal with this in the course of everyday life. So troubleshoot it. With adults, you have to do it slowly, bit by bit. With puppies less than 3 months old, you just throw everything at them.
Cool.
But thank you, Jamie, for thinking I was getting off topic. I'm never.
Well, I wouldn't say you're getting off topic. You're just moving to a different topic.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's to say which is the right topic? Who among us? All right. What's the next question? How do you calm an over-the-top competitor at hunt tests? It causes him not to think.
Well, obviously not at hunt tests. Again, you've got to get the problem out of the pattern. I bet if your dog's going crazy in hunt tests or rally or obedience or agility or fly ball, he goes crazy at other times too. And so I would practice all this basic. We start with the beginning. And I would start with repetitive sequence. This is my test sequence. Come here, sit down, sit, stand down, stand. And you'll find the reason for that sequence. We have to teach a dog to sit or down, which instantly calms the dog. And then later I use whoa, stand, means stand still. Now, if the dog understands that command and has been proofed so that it responds to that command anywhere, anytime, and there are 2 neat exercises to do that, then at any time in the hunt test, you can say sit or down. So how do we do this? Well, the 2 exercises are when you're walking your dog on leash or off leash, every 25 yards, ask him to sit or down. That means every training session was done in a different location, and that matters to dogs. If you trained a dog in a kitchen, you have a good kitchen dog. His response reliability will be much less in other rooms in the house and will halve if you take him outside. So we start with training him, come, sit down, sit, stand down, stand, with verbal cues in the kitchen. Okay. And then we make his environment more complex in terms of location and distractions. The next beautiful exercise, and I started this at the dog park today with Billy's first visit, is when dogs are playing off leash. I start with a simple sit once the dog comes to me of his own accord. Okay. And then after we've done that 4 or 5 times, then he comes, and then I say, good dog. And I even take his collar so he can't come and run off, and say, sit. And then I give him a bit of kibble, or 2 bits, or 3 bits, or 5 bits. You know, it's kibble. It's his brunch. I fed him a small breakfast, but he didn't get a brunch. And then I start to try it without the dog coming to me. And I wait for a time when the dog's sort of moving in my direction, and I say, hey, puppy, come here. And I run off quickly away from it. And we get a nice recall. And at the end of it, the sit is almost reflexive, a high-speed recall. And then you go sit with a hand signal when it gets to you, and you've got your sit. And I say, good dog, 3 bits of kibble, go play, that quickly. Because when a dog is in a distracting environment, performing a distracting activity like sniffing, as we've mentioned before, or hunting or rally or playing with other dogs, the only reward that will work, period, is that distraction on cue. You cueing the dog, you may now sniff, you may now, or you may jump up and down and act like a loon. I'm doing that with Billy here. He has a very big problem of jumping on people. So first thing in the morning, or when I come home, I say, hey, Billy, come on, jump, come on, jazz it up. There's a good dog. And he wiggles and he jumps and he bucks and he bronks and he prances, and I'm petting him all over. What he must not do is touch me. So the dog, I want the dog to be able to show his, wondrous joy that Ian's returned, when I've only been outside for 93 seconds putting out the garbage. I mean, I love this about dogs. It's like they have no short-term memory. They're always happy to see you, but they must not jump, because anything we do then, putting our hands on it, saying no, talking, anything we do, if we react, it's reinforcing the dog's reaction. So you've got to very calmly give instructions. Off will be the particular one here, which means not only don't touch this object in my hand, but don't touch that dog, don't touch the cat, or don't touch me. It also means if you're on human furniture, remove yourself from the human furniture. So it's a wonderful word that has several meanings to the dog, and it also calms it down. It naturally inhibits the exuberance to a point where it's now acceptable. I love all these activity problems, man. This is great.
And you can really generalize the advice for the bicycle problem or the hunt test problem. It's basically if you don't have control, you can't get your dog to listen to you in a specific situation. Like Ian said in the last question, you unpack the stimuli. Like, what are the aspects of a hunt test that makes it so exciting for your dog? And then introduce those stimuli one at a time in a controlled way, because you can probably get your dog to calm down, sit, stay, lie down at home with nothing going on. So what are the baby steps that you take between being at home in a boring environment to the hunt test? And how do you build up towards that gradually, so you don't all of a sudden throw 100 different, exciting factors at them at once? You give them 1 or 2 factors, and you build up their capacity to pay attention to you in response to 1 or 2 of the things that are exciting about a hunt test, or are exciting about bicycles, or, monster trucks or skateboarders or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, you would do the same thing with the frightening stimulus as you would, same way you would set progressive criteria if you're shaping a behavior, in clicker training, to the end response. So you look at the end response and say, well, I want my dog to do that totally on cue first time. Well, sometimes it happens pretty well if you're luring. I mean, a sit up from the down. There's your boing. I think that's incredible. First trial, I got the final performance. I just want you to do that way for the rest of your life. So in the same way, we have to have progressive criteria for the end response, and successively, approximating the end response. We have to unpack the reactive stimulus. I love that expression, by the way, Jamie. I wish I could say it, and I really consciously said it then, because it really describes the process very simply. You unpack piece by piece What is it about this which is triggering the dog and
Are you
sending
saying
him
you
like a
can't
rocket?
say it without smirking because it sounds like a
It's
buzzword?
not in my sort of natural
What about
vocabulary. No.
disassemble?
Yeah, a lot of
Take
my,
apart.
I will pick apart.
Yeah. All
Piece
right.
by
What's our next question? I recently adopted a 9-year-old Papillon. He
Woo!
is wonderful with my violin students, absolutely sweet and lovely with parent/kids. However, he is horrible in manners class, barking at dogs, etc. Question mark, question mark, question mark. I assume the question is, what's the deal?
Yes, that is a question. I understand that way of writing a statement. I
Uh-huh.
usually say at the end, comma, right? And then, but anyway, I had such
Well,
a
first of
vivid
all, hold on.
picture.
First of all, good doggy for being good around the parents and kids. So don't take that for granted.
Oh,
Hope
no.
you're praising your dog, your little Papillon for that.
But anyway, I had this vivid picture of a Papillon in a violin lesson sitting there with his butterfly ears like this, and then as the violin goes, the dog goes, can't you just see it?
Yeah,
Its ears
I can see
moving.
it with those
Anyway,
ears.
you now, from previous answers, you know the solution to the problem. Let's teach shush on cue. And again, you can do it when he's barking. You just say, Rover, shush, food on the nose, waggle it around. And when the dog stops barking, I don't care if it takes 20 seconds, 30 seconds. When the dog stops barking, good dog. There's a good dog. Good dog. Give him the kibble. Quicker way to do it, though, is to teach the dog to speak on cue. Done by the same lure reward basic training sequence 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, I say Rover speak or Rover woof, which is the signal for my accomplice to knock on the door. So that's the lure. Number 2. Number 3, the dog barks, and this time I reward. And I have videos of dogs doing this. I love the expression on the face the first time you praise them for being a dog and barking. It's like I've seen German shepherds go, I don't believe it. They finally got it. I'm a dog. Thank goodness. Once you got the speak on cue, now you can have a troubleshooting session while you're drinking a glass of wine, sitting in an armchair, or I like to do it when driving the car because then no one hears the barking. Rover speak, good dog. Rover shush, and food, go to the back of the car where the dog is. Good dog. There's a good dog. Or just sitting in the car with the, engine running. But teach it shush on cue, say it, and don't give up. I mean, I find it to this day. I've been in dogs for 50 years and teaching myself for 43 now, puppy classes. It blows my mind what puppies and adult dogs do in class, and there's no reaction, zero reaction from the owner. And you can tell the owner's upset and frustrated. Deal with it, before you become a leper in class. It'll be you they blame, not the dog. They won't say, that's a horrible dog. How can you say that about a Papillon? That's the third smartest dog of all breeds that you have here. So teach it something. And I would suggest teaching it to shush on cue.
Right.
But they
And
always
the
train
manners,
the owner like, oh, wish that silly old lady wouldn't bring a stupid Papillon to class. So you show them your Papillon is one of the smartest dogs in the world.
and when you think about it, an obedience class, a manners class, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a half dozen or more other dogs. There's a half dozen or more other people. It's in an unfamiliar environment. So you can take apart all those things and you can work with your dog and one other dog at your home or your backyard, or it's a familiar environment and it's just one dog and one person. And you can keep working with that one dog and one person until your Papillon is responding well in that situation. And then you can gradually build up some more people, some more other dogs.
And I'll tell you two things about the general public. Like if your dog is reactive or your dog is barking, what really irritates them the most is, and the owner did nothing. When you actually try and make an attempt, there'll be two things. One, owners will appreciate that they'll feel your pain and be on your side, and they will applaud when you make training progress. And the other thing is they will learn from what you did. And in some classes, maybe the trainer will learn too. Because when at my seminars, I say, write down, how do you teach a dog to shush on cue in class in 50 words or less that a child of 5 can understand? There's very few trainers who can write that out. And because Jamie and I have it down, we know all how to do it. We just say, oh, it's really simple. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 1, say shush. Number 2, waggle a food treat, Or say with other dogs like a golden, I say, take your tennis ball. And I mean, they can still bark with a tennis ball in their mouth, but not as like, woo, or else it pops out and then some dandy dinmont gets it and they've lost all street cred, cred as a retriever. They can do whisper woofs, which are actually quite funny, like, woof, 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 they've got it in their mouth. Their little flues puff out, So give it a whirl. Give it a whirl. When I do workshops, all I do in these workshops, and I've had some tremendous trainers in workshops, and I've had ranked novices. All I do is tell them what to do, give it a go. And what amazes me, they all end up doing it. All I am is a life coach. I say, keep doing it. Keep on his case. No, he's still barking. It's all right. I don't mind listening to the barking if you're trying to stop it. Just try quietly reciting a poem. I did that with one dog once. I remember I couldn't stop it barking with, the food. It wasn't interested. And so I sat down. It was a Doberman. And I said, the owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat. I whisper recited the poem, and that Dobie sort of went, trying to listen to what I was saying. So he stopped barking. So I then kept saying, good dog, you're a very good dog. Has anyone told you you're superb? And then gave treats, which it took.
All right. Next question.
God, we got lots of questions. I love lots of questions, Jamie.
Plenty pause. The verbal ah is usually seen as a positive punishment correction. Is there a point where this is just communication, like try again, kiddo? Is it just in the way it is executed, such as tone?
It's I use it a lot, and I hate myself every time I say it. But my dad used to do it. You go like that, and it's very useful information for the dog. That.
So why do you hate yourself for saying it?
Because as a kid, I hated it.
Okay.
And
but it was useful information, and you've turned into a well-behaved adult man.
I did. Yeah, but it wasn't. I didn't think it was fatherly. He could have said, "Ian, can you shush until this program's over on the radio?" And I would have understood that and said, "Okay, Dad." But I like it. It's very. It's to me. It's the antithesis of a click. And it's amazing to me that people like clicks to signal something good, which I think, and let me get this right. You took praise, glorious words of adoration, and replaced it with a click, and you're moaning at me for going, I mean, that surely is not aversive, it's communicative. The word I do prefer, and I try to use, but I haven't been training dogs for so long, I've forgotten, this is Janet Fridge's non-reward mark. Rather than saying no, I hate the word no as much as I hate the word yes. I just don't like that high-pitched squeak of a yes when you're trying to communicate that is correct. I would say yes or click. It should be, I think it should be a neutral tone if it's a secondary reinforcer. The primary is, what follows. But nope. And then she would add, and she trained border collies very, very quick. So she'd say, nope, that's not it. Try again. And they would try again. And then eventually they got it right. A straight sit,
So what do you think is superior about nope, that's not it? Try again.
Softer. I think it's softer than, CK are hard vowels, but nope is a very soft, the p. What do they call that? Percussive? Yeah.
So are you saying it's more pleasant for you to say, or you think it works better in training on the dog?
It works better for me when training a dog. And what I say to people is, I don't really care, which words you say to the dog, as long as you're using words with the dog. And here's the deal. There are certain words I want the dog to have a 95% response reliability with. Come, sit, down, stand, stay, speak, shush, chew toy, bed, settle, words like this. And we test it. And that's a damn good dog you've got there. He could waltz through a novice obedience competition with no extra training if you've done it in play and in walks. However, I talk to dogs all the time, and I don't expect the dog to learn the meaning of all the words. I use quite an extensive and sometimes highbrow vocabulary with dogs, but what they get is the feeling of it. Does Ian like that? Or does he find that unacceptable here? How much does Ian like that? It's pretty bloody obvious just from dialogue. So I keep some words sacrosanct, and these are the words that will follow the dog's name, such as Rover, sit, a suggestion. Or if I really want high level reliability, I would change its name to Fido. Obviously not Rover and Fido. There'd be two different names for your dog, like Omaha or Ohm, as I would call him, with suggestions, becomes Omaha in public, on the sidewalk, in parks, and in the obedience ring, he became Wahoo. I use the same commands, but there's a massive difference between Ohm, sit, Omaha, sit. That's an absolute must-do command, and I will not stop saying it until you do. And if you make me repeat the command, you have to repeat the whole exercise until you do it following a single request. Boom. So right from the very first trial of training with his formal command, they have to do it. And if they miss doing it after a single command, then they have to do it at least twice. People don't get this, saying you're repeating the command. I said, yeah, because I'm training my dog. Thank you very much. This is called learned relevance. It is not learned irrelevance. Shut up and go and reread the learning theory stuff again. Learned irrelevance is the command was once relevant and you made it irrelevant. And the only real instance of this in dog training is you send the dog away to be trained. It's trained beautifully at this train and board center. They give it back to you. And within 40 minutes, you make the commands, come, sit, down, stay, totally irrelevant again. That's learned irrelevance. And it's discriminated as by, there's nothing that this person says that is relevant to me. Unlike the trainer, no, when he quietly says, Rover, down. That's highly relevant because he doesn't give up until I do it. So I'm fighting for bringing our voice back to dog training. I think it is insane that the first thing we don't do in a lot of dog training techniques is to teach dogs to respond on verbal cue. And then we phase out all of our training tools, whether it's food, lures or rewards or leashes, collars, halters, harnesses. So the dog will respond to a single verbal cue anywhere, anytime, whether it's off leash, at a distance, when distracted, and no matter what is going on. Why we don't do that first, so we can cue what we want the dog to do. I find it criminal that we took words out of praise. Why did we take the whole personal aspect of living with a dog, the communication, away from it, from praise? The most wonderful thing I think to do is to talk to a dog and, let him know. But also what it steals is verbal guidance when the dog's off track. If you haven't taught ESL or our language to the dog, what the hell are you going to do when he's jumping up on people or running out the front door or eating the cat litter or whatever? You must be able to give a single word that communicates three pieces of information. Stop what you're doing, do this instead, and maybe the degree of urgency with which you respond, i.e. to sit because someone's left the front door open. We've got to bring our voice back to training.
Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I think we'll do one more question.
Oh, Jamie, I was just enjoying it.
And then, well, don't worry, Dad. Don't worry, everybody. We'll be back again tomorrow
Oh,
for
yeah.
another
Oh, we're
live
doing this
Q&A.
4 days in a row,
We're
aren't
doing
we?
it 4 days in a row. So we got
How
3
wonderful.
more coming.
I think I'll have a cup of tea tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Be very British. Well, it starts at 4 p.m., doesn't it? Hello.
Yes, tea time.
Tea
Depends
time.
on where you are. Some people are not on the
It's tea
West
time
Coast.
here, Jamie.
Yeah, it's tea time somewhere. That's the British version. All right, Lori says, my
Well,
dog
I could have morning tea for those people in, say, the Philippines.
Yes, you could. Lori says, my dog greets people and dogs by barking, barking, barking until he gets to them. Then he is okay. Is there a way to get him to greet them quietly?
Oh, yeah. That you have control over the people. And this is much easier now. And you have them come one at a time. They approach to within how many dog lengths you want, like, say, 5 dog lengths, and they stand still. And your dog's barking like an idiot. And you can either just wait till he stops. And when he stops, you say, go visit or say hello and walk quickly up to the person. And instantly he stops. He's happy. Or we could, give him the instruction to shush and try the food treat on the nose routine. But the point is, what you've obviously been doing is letting him get to the people while he's still barking. And so what he wants has very nicely reinforced the dog for continuing barking until he gets what he wants. And so the good news here, of course, before you get all morose and frustrated, you're a brilliant trainer. It's just that you've been training the wrong thing. So now you wait until he stops barking. And it's no biggie because these trainers, these people, these ersatz strangers know what's going on. And so he's going to stop barking, or else he doesn't get to greet these people. And if you're really getting frustrated, I love saying this. I say, right, okay, if you don't want to do it, training stops. And I turn around and walk backwards at a fast clip. And the dog says, you're going in the wrong direction. The person's behind us now. What are you doing? And then when I've got some attention from the dog, I turn around again and approach the person up to 5 dog lengths. And we do it again. And then we do it again. When we do it again. I mentioned about approaching the dog park today. That same dog park, it would be 40 odd years ago, when I walked up that very same path with Omaha, my Malamute, it took me 45 minutes before he would walk up to the dog park gate with a loose leash and not whining. I did it over and over. I must have bored the living daylights out of him. I bored him into silence. And then I said, good dog, go, sit, good dog, in the park, off you go play. Then the next secret is, after he'd got it out of his system with the play, I said, come here, put him on leash, left the park, walked 5 steps, turned around, came back again, and did the entry again. And he was just the smartest Malamute going into that park. No pulling at all. Because he knew if he tightened the leash once, he wouldn't get in the park. Your dog will know if he continues barking, he will not get that person.
I absolutely love the weight and reward training methods because they're so simple. The instructions can be explained very quickly and easily, and they make perfect sense. And with an activity like barking or pulling on leash or bothering at your hand, the dog cannot do it forever. And so if you wait long enough, they will stop. And when they stop, you can reward them. And if you reward them consistently for doing the thing you want, then you'll solve your problem. So I feel like it's magic for people because it seems like you're doing nothing. You're just waiting until the right moment and then rewarding. But it works wonders.
Waiting it's so powerful. I mean, I love watching people train, and the masters at training teach kindergarten or their grandparents that realized all the mistakes they made with their own children. Now they've got it down perfect with the grandchildren. They do a lot of waiting. They say, sit down, please. And then they wait. And then, thank you. I love it. I love it. It gives me shivers.
And I think that is reason why a lot of people these days have a great lot of difficulty training dogs, because I think we live in a modern era where patience is not common, where people are very busy, people have a lot of things to do, and especially, like if you've got a family, you've got kids, you've got a high pressure job, like you want to get the solution quickly. And a lot of times the most powerful training method is a little patience and taking the time to set up a scenario where you can give the dog time to figure things out. And that's not necessarily going to happen, snip, snap right away. Sometimes it takes a little time. And if you can create that space and that time, you can make a lot of progress, which will, in the long run, save you immense amounts of time. But in the short run, takes a little patience.
Yeah, I love seeing that. I like watching dogs learn. So like with the old come, sit down, sit, stand down, stand sequence. And then, we get the food out of our hands, so we're giving hand signals only. But when we're doing verbal commands, I mean, it happened this morning. And actually, Billy was very good and got a lot on the first verbal command. But there are a couple where I said, Billy, down. And she sort of made a little jerk. Like she knows she wants me to do something, but it's just not yet up in consciousness what it is. And then she pauses, and then she sort of makes a little elbow bend. And I'm just standing there waiting. And then she lies down. And I said, thank you, Billy, about time. And what's going on there is dogs learn progressively. It's very hard for people to understand. And I can explain it best with distance work. So if you test dogs, say, on the response reliability of a sit or a down, it'll be best when the dog is right in front of you, standing toe to toe. Then retest now the same sequence with the dog 1 yard away from you. Wow, it takes a big hit in terms of reliability. Then 2 yards away, then 3, then 5, then 8, then 10. With all dogs, you get to the point where the response reliability of the verbal word sit is 0. It's fascinating. And so that is why when doing distance commands, as we do week 1 in puppy class, puppies are playing and the owners tell the dog to sit from a distance, Rover sit, and they walk up to the dog going, Rover sit, Rover sit, Rover sit. And usually by about week 4 in puppy class, now the dogs are sitting from a distance, maybe 2 yards away or 4 or 5. Because as you take a step forward and repeat the word sit, the dog has better comprehension of it because you are more proximal to the dog. And this is, we've got to make a graphic for this to explain it to people. But I love seeing it when the dog knows you want it to do something, but it doesn't understand. And it makes these little intention movements. That was a command, but I just don't get it. I mean, they're saying sit when their back's turned. Then you turn around and say, Rover, sit, and the dog sits instantly. I mean, what more proof do you need, of the learning process or of the fact that, no, the dog's not trying to diss you. He hasn't, committed some crime. He just doesn't understand sit when you're 5 yards away and your back is turned. So why get angry with him when he's 20 yards away with his back turned and chasing a squirrel? Of course he won't sit then until you have progressively, done the same thing to the end performance as you would do when you were shaping.
All right. I think that's a great place to stop for today. We'll be back tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and we hope you'll join us. I want to say one last shout out to our sponsors, Doggy Dan, the Healing Vet, and
Woo!
of course, Dunbar Academy.
Woohoo! Dunbar Academy. Hot damn.
All right.
Way to go.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us. We know you guys all have busy lives and things to get to and dogs to play with and train. So hopefully you can take some of what we talked about today and put it into use.
And this was a very good session. We had a lot of good questions. So I thank all of you for listening. I wish I could see you all, these 105 people, or whether we went over that now. So as Jamie says, thank you very much for coming and thank you for listening.
All right. See you next time. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.